You know what? Wow, Emily.
Okay.
This reminds me, and I don't want to get off base here, this reminds me of feminism in the late 60s, early 70s, and how a lot of black women didn't feel like, as if they were a part of the feminist movement. So many African American women call themselves womanists. What do you think about Albert's remark here as it pertains to mainstream gay lesbian community and the African American gay lesbian community?
But I hear him, and I do sympathize with what he's saying, but it all has to start somewhere. You know, and everything has a starting point. And maybe blacks are not getting everything that they're due right now. Maybe the focus isn't on black gays and lesbians. But if we start somewhere, let's get started. We can change the color, we can make it a little taller, we can fix it as we go down the road, but let's get it started.
Let's get it started, absolutely. And I hope that happens when it comes to the consciousness of Chicago voting for this next mayor. Before we go to break, Emily, should Bill Doc Walls and Patricia Watkins, should they drop out of the race? They're polling at under 10%. Should they just leave it alone, or are they the conscience of this race?
I want to say they're the conscience of this race. I really do. I think they have a right to run, and if they feel like they have a voice and they need their voice to be heard, they should have the opportunity. That's what we're about.
Yeah.
It's the democracy of it.
Emily, stay with us. You stay with us as well on Off 63rd. In a moment, Chicago mayoral candidate Dr. Patricia Van Pelt Watkins joins us in the forum. Stay with us.
On the other hand, for the other candidate, Van Pelt Watkins, I think she earned herself some recognition and some points for the way she handled it.
And her bickering and them bickering, it's just not going to work. People aren't looking for that. People are looking to get past that. We got a recession to talk about, jobs to talk about, schools as always. So those are the issues that are going to be front running, and you know, people, that's what they're looking at. They're not going to want to hear any of the other stuff. They don't want to see it.
She was a big news headliner this week, a mayoral candidate, founder of the Target Area Development Corporation, and she holds a doctoral degree from Capella University. Joining us in the forum is candidate for mayor of Chicago, Dr. Patricia Van Pelt Watkins. Dr. Watkins, how are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
Welcome to Off 63rd. I'm doing well. We've got Emilie McKendall from WVON in the mix with us tonight. Dr. Watkins, the quintessential question. We had 20 mayoral candidates. It has dwindled down to 6. Why are there still 6? Why is Dr. Patricia Van Pelt Watkins running for mayor?
Well, number one, there's not a single candidate in the race that carries the voice of the people who live in the 77 neighborhoods in Chicago. And I recognize that I have a unique role, having worked as a community organizer for the last 15 years and the CEO of the Target Corporation. I have a unique experience with these people that live in the neighborhoods, and I understand what the challenges are and what the real solutions look like.
Okay, a unique experience. Doc Walls might say the same thing. Miguel Del Valle may say the same thing. Rahm Emanuel might say the same thing. So let's be more critical. Let's be more acute with what you have to offer as it pertains to Chicago.
Well, as I said, you know, I bring the voices of the people who live in the neighborhoods. You know, one of the things we don't hear anything about from any of the candidates is one of the largest challenges in this city is the ex-offenders roaming our streets with no jobs, no housing, no education, and no way to get in for the rest of their lives. You cannot improve public safety without dealing with that population. You hear anybody talking about that?
You know, this is interesting because if you're Martha Stewart and you're a felon, you can become employed again. But if you're an African-American male, or Hispanic male or white male for that fact, you get back on the streets, it's hard to get a job. Emily, I see you over there.
Yes, because what I'd like to ask you, Dr. Van Pelt Watkins, is I hear what you're saying about the people in the neighborhood and who has the voice for them, but you would be the mayor of all Chicago. And so I hear you, and I hear that you're focused on black issues as well. You should be, but what are you going to do for all the people of Chicago?
Well, I think Chicago is poised to be the transportation center of the world. We have the waterways, we have the airways, we have the railroads, we have all of these different components of transportation system sitting here, and it's not integrated. We need to bring our transportation system into an integrated system, and then we can move this city forward as the transportation center of the world. We already are the largest rail hub, had the largest rail hub in the country, and the 3rd largest in the world.
Dr. Van Pelt Watkins, we are in debt We owe, and then too bad the Olympics didn't come. We probably could have eliminated some of that. We pretty much gave away the parking meters.
Yes.
What do you do for job creation in Chicago?
Well,
and I know you mentioned transportation, but there's other situations here.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my plans is to waive the fees for new entrepreneurs for 2 years, the first 2 years. No fees at all, and also some support, because we have to hire ourselves. We can't look to the government to come and take care of us. We have to stir up the spirit of America, and that is reaching out and providing for ourselves, creating jobs for ourselves and other people, waiving those fees for 2 years, and after 2 years, if the business root, then they owe the fees.
Emily, quickly, and then I'm going to go to phones.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know what, and Emily, I want you to piggyback on this, Dr. Watkins, as well. We've got a phone call. Robert is on the line. Let's talk about education. Robert, thanks for calling off 63rd. Talk to me, Robert.
Hey, Mr. McClendon. I just wanted to say it's great to see you on air. You were my teacher over at Clover Academies. I don't know if you remember that. But my comment is about the mayoral candidate and the debate that we saw with them, with the students on education. And I really just wanted to make 2 quick points. Number one, that as a teacher myself, you get to really see that the mayoral candidates don't know really very much about education, especially when they're talking about bilingual education and how they really want it. What we have in Illinois is this speedy transition to English, when all the experts know it takes at least 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
And number two, the disparity in educational funding, especially in Illinois, is really bad. And I would really like to see us move to a system, something like Hawaii, where all districts, regardless of what the house property tax rate is, all districts are getting the same educational funding.
Robert,
for
thank you.
public schools.
Robert, thank you so much for your call. Emily, I'm going to come to you first, and then I need an answer from a potential mayor here. He's talked about bilingual education. Politicians don't necessarily know what to do with that, or they don't have any answers pertaining to it. And he talks about funding. Should the feds and the state kick in more money when it comes to funding a child's education?
And here's what I've been saying over the past few weeks. We've been talking about fixing the educational system for over 40 years. You know, ever since I was a kid, going to school. They gave away my age. But, it's time for somebody to do something. We've been talking, Robert has a very valid point. With the bilingual, I do think that it's only to our advantage to have our children speak more than one language. So it should be taught in the schools. But 40 years we've been talking about fixing this educational system. I have a problem with that.
You know what?
It's a buzzword.
Dr. Watkins.
Yes.
Buzzword. Emilie McKendall says it. Charter schools, magnet schools, vouchers. What's the answer here? Because if you're a New Trier person, if you're in Wilmette, if you're in Kenilworth, if you're in Evanston, they're going to spend 18, 19, 20 grand a year on you. If you're in a Chicago school system, that much isn't going to be spent. What's the answer as mayor? What would you propose?
Well, number one, we need to have an educator over our schools. Right now, the business community runs our schools. Number two, we need an elected school board that is representative of the population. Number three, we need to engage communities in helping to cause the reform to take place. They keep trying to reform our neighborhoods from the top down. It's never going to work. It has to come from the ground up in order for us to have the kind of success that we can keep.
You know what? I got another phone call. You ladies are blowing the lines up tonight. We're going to go back to civil unions. Will, you're on the line. You're on off 63rd. Will, talk to us. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, Will. What's on your mind?
Congratulations on your new show. I just wanted to speak about the issue of civil unions. It's just peculiar to me that we seem to promote the sort of mentality that it's something that is acceptable or should be acceptable. One of your guests made the comment that we're in a progressive society. It's as if sin no longer exists in our world.
Okay.
And if you're a Christian, a person who believes in God, a God-fearing individual, you know the sin of homosexuality. And God doesn't make any differences. He doesn't, while he may not hate the individual, the sin itself is something that is detestable to God.
Will, we got your point. Thanks, Will. I appreciate it. Let me go to Emily second, but Dr. Watkins, Governor Quinn signs this into law. He's saying not marriage, but a civil union can take place. Benefits for gays and lesbians. What's your standpoint on this? Is this a moral issue or a political issue or a legislative issue?
Well, I think it's legislative. I think that we cannot think we can bring the church on top of government, or we can't bring the government into the church. Now, we say many times that we don't want, we would never, most of us would say in Chicago, we do not want a Muslim to come over and take over the city as mayor and make us all Muslim, right? So we should not then expect that a Christian will come in and make us all Christian. We have to be able to move forward as a state in the city.
Good point. Emilie, quick comment, then I'm going to go back to the phones.
I just totally agree with what she just said. I mean, and that's what we were talking about earlier. So, no, I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Let me take one more phone call. You're on off 63rd. Welcome to the show. What's your comment? Make it quick.
Hi, my name is Robert, calling from the South Side, former Iraq war veteran. I'm calling specifically to find out what is the mayoral candidate, Dr. Watkins, her position on the finances of the city, working with the finances of the county as well as the state. We have a $654 million deficit and expected more than double that, $1.5 billion next year. What are some of the ways that we can generate revenue aside from small businesses?
Robert, I got to let you go. Thanks for the call. It looks like Tony Preckwinkle, she's saying 20% cut everywhere in the board. What does Dr. Van Pelt Watkins do? You got to make it quick when it comes to balancing a budget.
Okay, number one, we need a forensic audit. This administration has been in office for 20 years. I am sure if we comb those books, we're going to find millions, tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of fraud and loss. According to Dick Simpson, University of Illinois, we spend $500 million every single year on corruption. We need to comb that out. And so that's number one. Number two, strengthen the small businesses. We have to make it streamline the process so they can grow their businesses. And the new entrepreneurs program, all those will bring in new revenue. Number four, our fire department system has been the same for the last 50 years. We need to go back and look at that.
The time goes so fast, ladies. Emilie McKendall, who's the next mayor of Chicago? Gut feeling?
I haven't figured
gut
out.
feeling?
No gut feeling, but here's what I would like to ask.
We don't have time. Gut feeling?
No, not
Dr.
going there.
Watkins, who's the next mayor of Chicago?
Dr. Patricia Van Pelt.
Oh,
that's
man,
right.
I think Emilie wanted to say, Ron, thanks for joining us, ladies. A big thanks to my guests tonight, off 63rd, Emilie McKendall and Patricia Van Pelt. Watkins giving you public affairs, politics, education, and pop culture. If you're watching off 63rd, have a good evening.